Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel, or if this is your first time here, hi, my name is Carrington. If you enjoy all things book or makeup related, one or the other, both combined, then make sure you guys have hit that subscribe button, click the little bell, give this video a thumbs up if you enjoy, comment down below if any of these books have also pulled you out of a slump, if there's any of these books you would like to read after hearing about them, or if these are books that you also just did not like. Let me know all of your thoughts down below. And let's go ahead and let's dive on into today's video, which is talking about the 10 books that have pulled me out of a reading slump at one time or another. This may not be recent. This could have been years ago that I have read them, but I have been a huge reader since I was little. I have always loved books. I've always had a book wherever I went. So, you know, it's destined to happen that I was probably going to hit reading slumps here and there. It just was. And sometimes it would just take me a little bit to really just like keep going, or the momentum to keep finishing a book, whatever the case may be. But there were these 10 books at one time or another that I read that I was like, I have to continue reading. I need more. And these are 10 books I will recommend time and time again. Disclaimer, why we have to do these, I don't know. We do. If I like these books and you hated them, that's fine. That's great. I hate black coffee. Plain black coffee. Doesn't matter if it's iced. Doesn't matter if it's hot. Just plain black coffee, or just an Americano, or just shots of espresso only, couldn't be me. I will drink, but it's not my favorite to drink warm coffee beverages. Iced coffee, frappuccinos, love those. Frappe type things, love those. Okay, so it's okay to hate something. It's okay to markedly agree with that, or kind of like something, and it's okay to love something that somebody else does or does not. Okay, that's fine. It's okay. But these are the 10 books that pull me out of a reading slump that I just wanted to share with you. So let's go ahead and let's dive on in. Diving on into the very first book is going to be Baby Teeth by Zoe. I'm not for sure how to pronounce the first name. This book is so very, very good. I've heard some mixed reviews about this, but this is about a mom and a daughter duo that is just not going well. There's a daughter who has been nonverbal, and she has been kicked out of many schools. But she medically doesn't have anything wrong with her. The mom has taken her countless times to the doctor to try to figure out if there's something wrong with her. Spinal taps, MRIs, x-rays, neurology appointments. And they are just like, honestly, we don't think it's medical. We think it's something behaviorally going on with her. And she's staying at home with her mom. This is told from the viewpoint of both the mom and the daughter. It's just so interesting to see their dynamic from each perspective. And just like the absolute insanity that ensues between the mom and the daughter. This book was so good because it was just always like, what is going to happen next? Who is going to believe who? And then just the ending gripped my heart, because as a parent, if I had the ending where my child reached out to me and said what they did, I don't know how I would feel saying what the mom said back to the daughter. I don't know how I would feel about that. But then again, I'm also not in like this position. So it was just so interesting just to like think about, like looking back on it, like how would I have responded? But also like, wow, some of the stuff that happened is just genuinely wild. And the amount of people in this story that literally just like didn't take her concerns seriously, or were being manipulated by the daughter who could not even talk, is just honestly so wild to me. This book was a page turner. I am telling you, it was It was so good. If you are wanting like that mother and daughter relationship where it's got like some mental health issues mixed in here and there, and then like also wanting you to think like what links would you go to for your own kid, something like that, this is going to be the book for you. This instantly pulled me out of a reading slump. The next book is going to be Don't Let Her Stay by Nicola Sanders. Okay, this book is kind of similar to Baby Teeth, but also not. It has some like mental health in there, and it is about like a daughter like leading on a different persona for every person that she's with. Every person that she interacts with, you get like a whole new side to her with this daughter-in-law. And so basically it is about where this daughter-in-law comes to move in, comes to stay with her father, Richard, and his new wife, Joanne. And it just seems like Joanne is slowly losing her mind around Chloe, and she doesn't feel like her daughter is safe with her. And she keeps like venting these frustrations to her husband. The husband just doesn't see it because, again, every person that she encounters, you get a whole different side to her. So you are honestly just genuinely like, what is the real story? And then finally, you think you start piecing together the puzzle at the end. And I was just like, oh, okay, I wasn't really expecting this, because Joanne is now digging up her husband's past, digging up Chloe's past, is having to talk about like her own past, and how that's like all fitting in together now. But then at the end, once you like think that it's like, okay, this is the end. Like, we are there. Like, this is what happened. It throws you for a completely and totally other loop. Now, let me just say, this did pull me out of a reading slump, but at the same time, Chloe is annoying as hell. She is so annoying, and she will literally it's like almost like nails on a chalkboard how annoying she is, just how different she is with everybody. And when you know what's happening, because you're reading it from an outside perspective, you just want to bang everybody else's head into the wall. But this was so beautifully written, kept me on my toes, and the twists on twists are just chef's kiss, beautifully done. The next book is from an author I don't think gets enough credit, but I haven't read a ton of his books, so take that with a grain of salt. But the next book that got me out of the reading slump is Jeremy Bates's Island of the Dolls. This is part of his like Scary Places series. He has like Scary Places, Scary People, or Scary Events, or something like that series. And I have already read The Sleep Experiment. That was also really good. That's like an honorable mention. But this book right here had me going through so many emotions and made me really just want to keep knowing what is going on. So if you don't know anything about Alan of the Dolls, there is an Alan Barbie, okay? We were on the right track. Island of the Dolls, it is based on an actual place with an actual myth and a legend. And Jeremy Bates just kind of elaborates on that and gives more to the story in like a fictional way. And it's about these 4 friends who go to this island for the sake of like the Travel Channel to go ghost hunting on this island, because it's supposed to be haunted by this little girl who was murdered there by her parents. And the guy who ran the island paid his tributes. That's why, nothing bad ever happened to him. Paid the tributes by always bringing back a doll when he would go to the mainland to train things from his island for things that he would need on the island. Things like that. And it talks about like the little girl surrounding the idea of the island, the dolls, things like that. It talks about that. It talks about Mr. Solano and like his role in all of this. And then it also talks about the 4 friends and how they are now on this island and a storm is coming in and they can't leave the island. Nobody is going to be able to come and pick them up. And they had someone bring them and drop them off. And they even said like, hey, I think we should turn back around. But they paid them more. They paid them more for them to be able to stay there and just leave them there. And that's because on top of there being something very weird and sinister on the island, there's also something going on within them as well. There's a lot of like tension and like animosity amongst everyone that is there, and just the things that they and the people that they find on this island, and they start unraveling the secrets of the island. It's so good and heartbreaking. This was really, really heartbreaking. At the same time, I cried my little eyes out on some of the parts. I just cried, and I'm okay with admitting that. Okay, I'm okay with that. I cried, but this definitely pulled me out of a reading slump. If you're somebody who likes a little bit of history, but like in a historical way, but also like the history of like really spooky type places, Jeremy Bates is going to be for you, and this book was expertly done and written. These next two books are by the same author, and although I don't always get, like, all of these books may not have gotten like 5 stars from me, that doesn't mean that they did not pull me out of a reading slump and they were not 100% worth it. Okay, I just want to say that in case you've ever seen any of my ranking videos with these being in it. Okay, just wanted to say that. But that is going to be John Marrs, and the first book is going to be The Good Samaritan. I absolutely love this book, and this could have been 5 stars if it didn't start getting like super just like wildly outlandish, and the ending kind of made me a little bit upset. But the topic that this talks about is so good, because you never know who's going to be on the other end of a phone call when you're calling into somewhere asking for help, and what their intentions are behind that. So this is about Laura, who works at End of the Line, and this is based in the UK, and in the UK, suicide has been decriminalized. Whereas here, if we call into like our suicide prevention hotline and say we want to kill ourselves, well, now we're going to have a sheriff department on our back step. But with this book, it's you call in and somebody is there just to talk to you and just to listen to you. They are not to sway you one way or the other. They are not to sway you to end your life. They are not to sway you to keep living your life. They are there just to be like a comforting ear for you when you're in that dark place, for you to just like process all of your thoughts that maybe you haven't been able to spill out to anyone else, and you may only have like an hour in therapy each week, and you just feel like that's not enough time for all the thoughts going on in your head. And so that's what this End of the Line is for. Laura, however, loves to help people cross over the bridge of death with her on the line, but then she does it with just the wrong person at the wrong time, and the husband is furious and then starts catching on to Laura, and the way in which he like catches on to her, finds her, the way in which he goes about trying to prove who she is, her actual motives, and then like the things that Laura is willing to do to make sure that nobody ever knows and she can continue on what she's doing, is so crazy. But then also like the private things that are happening in Laura's life, and like just surrounding Laura and why she is the way that she is also just so wild. This was so good. It was so well done. Again, it got a little bit outlandish. He did mean for it to be a slow burn, like John Marrs has commented in groups and things, that this is just kind of one of his slow burn books. So, you know, adding in that extra like, wow, this is absolutely insane, why is this happening, is probably there for like a little like effect, you know? And just as somebody who works and has worked with like in the mental health profession, things like that, this really gripped at my heartstrings and just made me so incredibly sad that people just don't find life worth living. But also like those that are destined to help, like what happens if that's set up in a way so that a way you can help people murder themselves? It's like the perfect setup for like a serial killer. It's a very interesting book and very, very thought-provoking. So good. The next one from John Marrs is one I just finished, and I was in love. I read this in like 2 days. This is Keep It in the Family by John Marrs. Okay, obviously, like I've said this like a million times. This was so good. This was so good and had me on the edge of my seat. So it starts with this newlywed couple. They're living with Finn's parents in their like little annex, so it's not like in their house, but it's on their property. Mia and the mom don't really get along all that well. Mia struggles to get pregnant. Finally, she does end up pregnant, and they are wanting to buy this house. However, their parents were wanting to buy it and like renovate it and then like either rent it out or sell it for like extra income. But they were like, hey, you know, this is like the perfect chance for us to be able to have a house that we can afford in a nice neighborhood. So the parents were like, okay, yeah, we'll let you buy it and we can help you renovate it. So they buy this house, but in the house, they discover bodies, and now they are absolutely terrified. There's a massive investigation going on. They say that the bodies were from a long time ago, but Mia just cannot seem to wrap her head around the atrocities that were happening in her home. And she just keeps wanting to dig further and further. But as people around her are starting to act weird and suspicious, she's thinking that there's a very real possibility that something, you know, that maybe they aren't as safe as they think they are, that the killers might still be around, because again, nobody knew about these killers. Like kids would go missing, but nobody ever knew where these kids ended up. And it talks about, from this book, it talks about it from like multiple perspectives. So you've got Dave and Debbie, who is Finn's mom and dad, her perspective. You go through Mia's perspective, Finn's perspective. And then like throughout the book, it doesn't say the name, but then it talks about the person who was the killer and like 39 years earlier. And it just talks about like their trauma as well, and like what led them to the murderings, where they are now, who it was. It is just absolutely wild. The family is all just like, it's so much family drama, so much family hidden secrets. Mia, who, you know, isn't an intricate part of the family, you know, just got married to their son, also has some like hidden secrets that like she needs to like come to terms with as well. This was just so beautifully written, beautifully done. I'm telling you, I was on the edge of my seat. So good. All right, the next book that pulled me out of my reading slump is going to be Daisy Darker by Alice Feeney. I feel like this seriously does not get the hype that it deserves. This 1000% deserves all the hype that it gets. And more, because it doesn't really get a whole lot. I know a lot of people said they saw the twist coming. No, you didn't. No, you did not. And then for them to be like, there was just so much like extra added stuff. But I thought that tied in so well into like knowing what happened. This is definitely, you know, the family comes together for their grandma's 80th birthday. She went to like a fortune teller who told her that this is going to be her last birthday. So she got the family all together to like read her the will, because she had made millions of dollars selling children's books. One of the children's books being called Daisy Darker. And, you know, it kind of is centered around the grandma and that book that she wrote, and, you know, trying to get the will, and like people aren't happy with what they earned in the will. And so now people are slowly dying, and you need to unravel the family secrets in order to know what's happening. And the ending just, it shocked me. It absolutely shocked me. When I tell you, I was not expecting that ending. I was not. I was expecting, you know, anything else along the lines, like anything else. But the very ending just being like, wow. So it had a lot of really good elements in it for me. So one, it's the family drama. I wanted to know more about the family. I wanted to know what happened. I wanted to know what is going on with this family. So that kept me really pulled in and intrigued. The next is everybody keeps dying. And it's like, if all of you are dying, who is doing this? Who is murdering everybody? And sometimes it's like they're all in the same room together. So it's like, how could the one person that's not in the room end up dead when everybody else is here? What is going on? What is happening? What is happening? Is somebody else on this island with us? Because they're on this island. They can't get off the island because she lives out where like there's a high tide, and it's only a low tide where they can leave during certain hours. So now they're stuck on here. till morning with everybody dying, nobody knowing, thinking somebody else is on the island, and there is probably somebody else on the island. And so just like trying to like piece all of those together with the just like immaculate twist at the end made this just edge of my seat, pulled me out of a reading slump. I had to know what happened, and I was not disappointed. The next book is going to be A Flicker in the Dark by Stacey Willingham. I wanted to call her Wilmingham, but it's Willingham. I just finished this book as well. This was so good. This was my book club of the month read that my work book club is kind of doing together. And I loved this book. I again read this in like 3 days. It was so good. It is about Chloe, whose father 20 years prior was sent to prison for murdering 6 girls in their small hometown. And she has forever lived with that guilt. She has forever had to put up with the media attention and the drama placed on her and her family because of this. And it just really talks about that turmoil. But now 20 years later, she is trying to be successful, trying to make a career for herself, all of these other, other things. And then the killings around her start happening again, but they don't think in any way that it is related. But then she starts finding like clues and like things that like pinpoint that there may be either like a copycat in the area or something like that. The twists and turns of this and just wanting to know. And it is such a page turner. And the thing that is like so wild is I am not the only one who had thought this, because again, I am in a book group and there are 20 of us, I think. There's like 20 of us. And everyone is like, this book is so good. And my best friend Sarah Selena, she does not like to read. She is not a huge reader. She loves for me to tell her about what I am reading, but she usually doesn't read. But she wanted to be a part of the book club, and she was like, I'm gonna read. So she got the book and she's been reading it, and even she is like, this is such a page turner. The twists, the turns, the thinking you know what's going to happen and either being right or wrong, but very like just how all the pieces come together from all parts of the book. Like it just ties every little intricate detail together, and it was just so good. It's so beautifully well written. The ending will have you just like wow, like hello, thank you ma'am. It was so good. The last 3 are also going to be from the same author. I'm going to go ahead and preface this now by saying this is an author that a lot of people have issues with. A lot of her books have been banned from different schools, different libraries for one reason or another. But honestly, this author, I purchase her books as soon as they come out because I know I'm going to love them and I know I have to have them. And there's yet to be a book where I'm just so disappointed in it that I was like, I would never recommend this to anybody. So take this next part with a grain of salt. The things that she talks about can be very difficult topics to talk about, to approach, to read, to open up your mind to things like that. So take these next with a grain of salt. I know she's not everyone's cup of tea, but let me tell you, Jodi Picoult is my favorite author. My favorite author. I'm definitely one of those where I just want to talk about like if, dipping your toes into Jodi Picoult and the types of things that she is going to talk about. This is a great one to start with. This is fantastic. Again, I have read this 4 or 5 times since it was published, and I will probably continue to keep rereading it. It's just that good. This follows a girl named Sage, and she is a baker, and there is a lot of trauma within herself, so she goes to a grief support group. There is a guy named Joseph there who doesn't ever really say anything, doesn't ever really say a lot. She works at this bakery, and one day he comes in and they strike up a conversation. And that's when he presents a proposition to her to consider. And, at first she's like, oh no, Like, I am not doing that. Like, that is illegal. Like, there are so many moral implications, legal implications. There is a lot. There's a lot wrong with what you are asking me. And that's when he starts talking about his time as a Nazi in the German party during World War II. And he just starts pouring out these atrocities that he has done to other people. How he allowed himself to be brainwashed by Hitler in the German army. And he talks about like his family and like his brother specifically a lot. And he talks about, they call her the storyteller in the book. And, you know, just like talks about her and how, you know, he wanted to save her as well. And he's just basically struggling with a lot of grief. And his story ties a lot into like her family life as well. And then at the end, after hearing everything talked about, she has to come with a crippling decision to either follow through with what he has asked after what she knows, or not, knowing that there are a lot of legal and moral implications. And then the thing that I love about her the most is you're sitting here reading this book, you think you're going to know what's going to happen at the end of the books, and you just don't. Or like you do, but the way in which she writes it, or the way in which you would be like, yeah, I saw that part coming. There will be just another part where you just didn't really expect that or see that part coming. It's so good. If you like World War II type things, but also wanting to think about the heinous crimes of that done in World War II, while also gripping with if somebody laid down the atrocities that they had done to you, would you be willing to go through with what he is asking? And it's so good. It's so very, very good, very thought-provoking. I have been glued to this book. I can read this in a number of days. And again, this is like 450-page book, and I can plow through this in just a few days. So good. If you have not experienced Jodi Picoult, this is the first one I would say to check out. The next book by Jodi Picoult, and this is a very controversial one, as a lot of her books are, is Small Great Things. So this is about Ruth. She is a nurse. She has been a nurse for a long time. She has been recognized as an upstanding nurse, and she is a Black nurse. She is the only Black nurse that works at her really small hospital. And in comes in two parents that are getting ready to have a baby, and they are white supremacists. Once the baby is born, they realize Ruth is going to be like their nurse. They immediately ban her. They tell the doctors that she is not allowed to come into their room. She is not allowed to take care of their baby. They're really upset about that. The hospital then just like honors that, doesn't even talk to Ruth about why or like the repercussions of that. And then unfortunately, one time there was an emergency that happened, and Ruth was in charge of just like watching the babies, and the baby was in her care at the time, and he died. So now they're wanting to sue her. And this just like talks about like racism within the justice system, racism within infrastructures, companies, things like that, wanting to talk about topics that a lot of people don't want to talk about. And now she is going to trial with a lawyer to try to clear her name. And even the lawyer is like, you don't have a very good case against you. Like, it does look like you, if you did not intentionally murder the child, that it is very much a manslaughter, and that, you know, you didn't do anything because you were mad that they were white supremacists. It wasn't because, there was something wrong with the baby that you couldn't do anything about. It was because you were upset about that. So, and she's trying to clear her name that isn't what happened. And even her lawyer, who is a white lawyer, is like, sorry, she has a son that she's trying to raise by herself. You'll hear a lot about like Ruth's background as like a child, what her life was like, and how she got where she is now, how she became a nurse, how she is now like this single mom after her husband died, and how she's trying to raise her son. And there's just a lot of like action-packed grip. And again, this is a very controversial book, but it was so good. All right, this last one, when I read it before I ever had kids, I cried. And again, this got me out of a reading slump. I have since read it again. And since reading it again with kids and with kids with special needs, this book broke me. It pulled me out of a reading slump again, 2 times in a row, and made me just so thankful for my 2 kids and for me to have the love and the appreciation for them and their special needs. It's just amazing. But more along the story. House Rules by Jodi Picoult. Okay, I don't usually get super like personal with my life on YouTube, but I think I need to preface this by saying I have 2 children who have autism. And they are really high functioning. In this book, it talks about Asperger's. Jacob, her son, in this book has Asperger's. They don't really use that a whole lot anymore with like autism diagnosis. So they're considered a high level 1. There's level 1, 2, and 3. And that's going to be based on the number of supports that they would need independently. And my kids do like to make friends. They do like to converse. They do like, they do well and they do okay in school. They do well in school, like they have IEPs, they have one-on-ones here and there, not all day. They do a lot of things in the classroom, but have one-on-one support to help them out. And so they would be considered, with Asperger's. But I watch them struggle with social interactions. I watch them struggle with people and kids, not understanding them, being mean to them, telling them to please stop talking. My son is in 2nd grade and he came home all last part of last year talking about nobody wanted to sit with him at lunch. And when he would try to sit with them and talk to them, they would be like, please stop talking to us. Nobody came to his birthday party. He invited all of his friends and he was so excited to have his friends go to his birthday party. And none of them showed up. Even if you don't have kids with special needs or know somebody that does, again, I read this book before I had kids and I cried. After having kids, I bawled my eyes out. But maybe hopefully parents will read this and teach their kids to be better human beings. So this follows Jacob Hunt. Jacob, again, has Asperger's. He's really high functioning. He does like to try to make connections with people, things like that. And it talks about how he is really interested in like forensic analysis. Now, people with autism really like to hyperfixate on something. That could be video games, that could be forensic analysis, that could be taking things apart, putting it back together, that could be cooking, it could be a number of things that they just really, really like and are really hyper-focused in. And for a lot of people with Asperger's, like Albert Einstein, things like that, they excel in those areas. And with him liking forensic analysis, there happens to be a murder that occurs in his town, and Jacob wants to help with the investigation. He thinks he could really help solve the mystery and unlock it. But now the police are very suspicious of him, and because he does have those like autistic cues, where like he doesn't really want to look them in the eye, or he has a hard time understanding and answering a question, or he doesn't read body language, or his body language doesn't look appropriate for the situation, or his facial expressions. They think that the reason why he wants to help is because he's the one who's murdering these kids. And now the mom is like, no, my son would not do that. He wants to help in the investigation. And granted, I know that he shouldn't be doing that. He's not the killer. And now they're like putting him on trial. And the mom is just trying to struggle to like just teach the police officers to like, love and accept somebody for who they are, and also just trying to get to know them and their different qualities and their different quirks. Because, you know, he may have like information or know things or notice things, because again, that's something that he really specializes and excels in, that maybe the police didn't notice, and instead of taking the time to get to know him. So it's like a long court battle. It's a battle about, you know, teaching others how to read a child with autism, getting them to connect, and just watching a parent just battle for the love for her child, who is different from everybody else, and being her advocate. It was such a good book. And again, the ending will always just give you a twist that you just did not see coming, but honestly will leave you just like gut-wrenched or happy. It's either one or the other with her books. You're either gut-wrenched or you're super happy. There's never one or the other. But this book, wow. So that is it for today's video. Just talking about the 10 books that easily just pulled me out of a reading slump. Those are so amazing. Again, let me know down below if you have read any of these. What are some books that you will like just pulled you out of a reading slump? Are there any of these books you're willing to check out? Let me know all that down below. Are there some books where you're just like, oh, there's no way I would read that? Let me know. If you enjoy this, if you enjoy makeup, because again, I have a video, or will be having a video, depending on which comes first, doing this look with some new products, then make sure you guys have subscribed. Click the little bell. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed, and I will see you all in my next one. Bye.